Hey everyone, my name is Chad. This is part 2 of the step-by-step guide for CloudOffice specific to DigitalOcean deployments. You will need to have a DigitalOcean account already, and you'll want to have followed through the first video where we set up Windows Subsystem Linux, installed Terraform, and a few other tools. Let's get started. I'm at the GitHub page and I have PowerShell open. I will scroll to DO or DigitalOcean and then scroll down to the DigitalOcean specific instructions. Here we need to open Windows Subsystem Linux. I'll do that, and CD to the home directory. We're going to install the doctl tool. That's a command line tool to interact with DigitalOcean, and there are 4 commands. There's a set of 4 commands. Copy all 4 and then right click to paste them in. You can paste them all in at the same time. The final one you have to hit enter. And it will ask, because this is a sudo command, it's going to ask for our sudo password. That's the password we set up in the previous video when we installed Windows Subsystem Linux. And that is done. There is an alternative. We're going to skip that. For Windows Subsystem Linux, we do not do this. But if you're using Ubuntu natively, you could install doctl via snap. Next, we create the DigitalOcean personal access token and a spaces ID and secret. We'll do that through the web UI for DigitalOcean. Open that tab up, and if you haven't logged into your account, do so. You'll be presented with this page where we create a personal access token. I'm going to call mine CloudOffice. Both of these boxes should be checked. And I will create a spaces access key, also called CloudOffice. And this will generate 2 values. We're going to need all 3, so we're going to need this personal access token at the top here, and then both the key and the secret. Do not close this tab. We're going to need these values in just a moment. These are sensitive strings. Keep that in mind. Mine will be erased by the end of this video before it gets uploaded, so that's fine. But keep in mind these need to be kept secret and safe. Let's go back to the instructions. We set up the doctl to use the personal access token we just created. Copy and paste that command. It's asking us for our token. That's this first value. I'll copy it to my clipboard and then right click to paste it in. You don't see it when you paste it, but that's okay. Just hit enter. Next, we need to add the personal access token and the spaces ID and key to do.tfvars. That's a file we're about to customize for our deployment. Let's continue and you'll see that. CD to the do specific directory in CloudOffice. This is part of the git clone that we ran earlier in the previous video. And then we're going to open the same directory in File Explorer. So copy this address. And you'll notice here that it has home/Chad. Chad is my Windows Subsystem Linux username. If I type in who am I can see that. File Explorer. There we go. And then paste it in the address bar, and then I'm going to change Chad if my username is different, or you would change Chad if your username is different. Mine is, I'll leave it, I'll hit enter, and you'll notice at the top, do.tfvars, that's the file we're going to edit. Double click it. It might ask you which application to open it in. Notepad is fine. I've already done that. It didn't ask me. We've opened it up. Let's scroll down to the variable section. We can look at each of these variables. First up is the admin password. This is the password to access the Nextcloud web UI. Probably the most important variable. Set it to something safe and secure and unique. The username is ncadmin, as referenced here, and you'll see that when we test it out after deployment. I'm going to set it to change me 1A, something simple for the tutorial. Next are the DB password and only Office password. This is what the Nextcloud application uses to talk to those applications, to talk to the database and to talk to the only Office plugin. I'll go ahead and set these as well. They need to be unique. I would suggest you don't need to remember them. Really, the only one you need to remember is that first value, the admin password. My suggestion though would be to, once we're done, make a copy of this file, copy it somewhere safe, just for reference. And then, so we've set the 3 passwords. The SSH key, we've created that SSH key in a previous video, in the setup prerequisite video. You can get the value if you cat that file. I've already done that here. I'm going to grab the results, copy, right click, and paste it in between the quotes. All right. Next is Management Cider. That is the web That's the IP range granted access to the web UI and instance via SSH. If you're deploying from home, this could be your public IP address with a /32 suffix. That's certainly one option. The other option is to open it up to the world, and that's what I'm going to do. There are implications there. That means anybody could potentially attempt access to your Nextcloud web UI instance or SSH. However, they would need that admin password, right? Or your private SSH key, neither of which you're exposing to anyone, so you should be safe. But keep that in mind, that is exposure to the outside world. And I'll do that by typing in 0.0.0.0.0/0. I think that's the right number of zeros. Next is the DO token. That's the token that we created, the personal access token in the web UI. I'll go back and copy mine. We'll copy and paste that in. And then the storage access ID and storage secret key. So I'll copy that as well. This allows Nextcloud to use DigitalOcean cloud storage. There are a couple other options, such as the region. I'm going to set mine to NYC or New York City 3. And then the DigitalOcean image, Ubuntu 18.04 is fine. I believe Ubuntu 20.04 is okay as well, though at the time of this, 18.04 still has several years of support, and it works great for me. There are some other things, such as the DigitalOcean size. 1 gig is the minimum, and I certainly suggest doing some research on your needs. If you're sharing this with a bunch of people, this probably is not going to cut it. But if this is a personal Nextcloud deployment just for you, where its purpose is to store your files in bulk store, and you're not planning on doing anything crazy with it, you could probably get away with 1 gig instances. If not, then certainly do some research on the other sizes, what's available in DigitalOcean. 1 gig is the minimum. It's not going to be super performant. Don't expect anything snappy with this small of an instance, but it should be okay. There's also the DO CIDR. This is the network that's created in DigitalOcean for your Nextcloud instance. You would need to edit this if you've already deployed services in Nextcloud and they use that IP range. You might need to edit this. I do, because I've deployed in DigitalOcean, but if you've never used DigitalOcean before, or this account doesn't have any other resources in use, you probably don't need to change it, but I'm going to set mine. Next is a prefix. This is like a labeling prefix. It labels different resources, like the name of the instance, the name of your storage buckets. You could change that if so desired. And then things like the web port, right? The port that you would access Nextcloud on, 443 is HTTPS default. You could certainly set it to something else if you wanted. The same thing with only Office. You don't really browse to that directly, but Nextcloud will. So just an FYI. There are also the Docker IP addresses. These are the IP addresses for each of the containers that we spawn on the instance that we deploy in DigitalOcean. If you have other services that you plan on running, keep these in mind. I doubt you need to change them, but you can if you need to. All right, that's everything in the variables file. I'm going to save mine. Again, maybe make a copy of this. Keep it somewhere safe. I'm going to close this out and scroll back up to the instructions. So we've edited the file and saved it. Next, we make sure we're in the directory we are, but I'll do it anyway, just to be sure. And we Terraform init. This will tell Terraform to download the DigitalOcean specific code that it needs, as well as a few other plugins that might be required. This should be pretty quick. And then we'll also copy the Terraform apply. This is kind of the magic of Terraform, where it will take 3 things. It'll take the code that's included with the CloudOffice project. It will take your customized variables file, and it will take your authentication that we put in the variables, and then use all of that to build out the resources in DigitalOcean. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in. We're going to get a plan with all the resources that Terraform is going to build in DigitalOcean. There's a random string that's generated. There's the DigitalOcean network that's being created, and the SSH key. There's our bucket. There's another bucket. and things like the floating IP address that will be assigned to our instance and the instance itself, firewall rules, etc. So you can scroll through and look at all the resources that are going to be created. I'm going to type in yes, I do want this to be deployed. Terraform will now go through and deploy all the resources. There is a second step to this once Terraform is done. If we look back at the diagram, you'll see Terraform plus Ansible automation. Terraform deploys all of the resources for us in the cloud, and then Ansible will set up the instance, things like the Docker containers. So we need to give that just a moment. We need to let Terraform finish, and then we can continue with the Ansible portion. It's already done. I would suggest giving it a moment though. That instance is still booting. If I try, so if I scroll up here, Ansible service setup, this is the next step. If I try to run this, this is going to copy a shell script to the instance. I'll type in yes, this is the first time attempting to connect to my cloud instance. You can see you get permission denied. Let's give it a moment. It may take a minute or two for the instance to fully boot up. I'll be back when it's ready. You could try this every now and then to see if it's successful, but be patient, it shouldn't take. Okay, it's been a couple minutes. I'm going to try again. Let's see if that file transfers. It did, and then the next step. And I would suggest that all this green text is output from Terraform. You can get the, if you ever close Windows Subsystem Linux out, you need to get it again. You can type in Terraform output. As long as you're in the CloudOffice/do directory, you can run that and get it again. It isn't green this time, but you can still see it. You can also, my suggestion, just like I suggested, make a copy of the vars file and keep it safe, you should maybe keep a copy of this output as well. So we ran the SCP, which is a secure copy, and then next we're going to run the shell script that we copied from our local machine to our cloud instance. So I'll copy that command, copy, by highlighting and then right-clicking, and then right-click again to paste, hit enter, and the service will start. You could follow along now. There are instructions to follow along. Let me go back to the Digitalocean instructions. Note the outputs from Terraform. Wait for the virtual machine to become ready. Ansible will set up the services for us. If you want to watch Ansible set up the virtual machine, you can SSH to the instance and tail the file. I'm actually going to run this a little bit. There's a simpler way to do it, in my opinion, and that's via. You could do it that way. We'll run that, and we'll just give it a little bit. So this will show us the output as Ansible goes through and sets up things like installing the required packages. That's what it's doing right now. It creates a swap file to help out. It will set up the Docker containers, so you'll see like the Nextcloud container, the OnlyOffice container, the database, etc. This will take a little bit. Again, I ran this with the smallest instance possible. Doesn't have a ton of resources, so it may take a little while. Terraform's done, Ansible's doing its thing now. Let's give it a little bit, and we'll be back when it's done. You'll get, there's an output line at the very end, and it will show us kind of a summary of all the things that happened. It'll tell us if there were any errors, etc. I'll be back. Okay, Ansible is done. We can see the play recap, and the most important bit is that failed equals 0. Everything has been installed. We're good to go. I'm going to close out of the tail with Control-C, and then I'm going to run Terraform output again. Scroll up to the Web UI link. Right-click the copy. Let's open that up in a new tab, and I'm going to, oh, your connection isn't private. That's okay. That's because we have a self-signed HTTPS certificate. The connection is still secure. It's still encrypted. We just need to tell our browser to continue. That's okay. I'm going to turn off my extension for Dark Reader and then log in. ncadmin is the username, and then my password was changeme1a. All right, and to showcase some of the features, Nextcloud is good to go, by the way. You could configure it however you like. A couple things to note: under Files on the top left here, you'll notice Cloud Storage. That is the DigitalOcean infinitely scalable storage. You could put as many files there as you like. If you do not use that folder, this cloud storage folder, it will count against the hard drive that your instance deployed onto. So keep that in mind. You could use either one. You could use the regular storage, which is the hard drive of your instance running in DigitalOcean, or you could use this cloud storage. There's also Talk. This is just another pre-installed plugin. This is a way to do web conferencing. You can do video chats through this application, create a conversation, allow guests to join via a link. You could password protect it, add yourself, the admin, and the conversation is created. You could copy and share this link to others to have them join. Pretty cool. And then you can see here, start call, and it would use my webcam or something like that. Next, what else do we have? Oh, only Office. So I can, if I click document and create a new test doc, it will open in only Office. You can see a new tab popped up here. And we have our document editing. You can do this collaboratively, right? You could have multiple people working on the same document. It works with docs and spreadsheets, etc. It has all sorts of features, spell check, that sort of thing. You can share, you can collaborate, and then it's automatically saved. And you can see here at the bottom, all changes were saved. If I close it out, we can see the test doc is down there at the bottom. That about wraps it up for Nextcloud. I do want to show maintenance, right? So if you take a look, we go back into the instance. Let me SSH back in. And I run sudo docker ps. Let me expand this out just a bit. You can see there are several Docker containers. We have only Office, the web proxy, Nextcloud, and the database. Each one of these occasionally has updates. They are all first-party applications with the exception of the database, which is by linuxserver.io. Occasionally, all of these will get updates from their maintainers, from the party that maintains them. That might be only Office or the Nextcloud company or the Apache group, etc. To keep these up to date, there are instructions. They're in the Terraform output. Instructions are here. You can see it, update containers in Ansible rerun instructions. I'll copy this. We need to SSH to the instance. Logged in. And then there are two commands. The first is to remove all of the existing Docker containers. The service is down until Ansible is reapplied. There we go, the containers have been removed. Our data is still there, it's still present. Only the application, the containers, have been removed. And then we can reapply the Ansible playbook. We do that via a systemctl command or systemd service. So I'll copy and paste that in. This is going to run, we can tail, just like we did when we first set up the service, we can tail, and there it goes. We'll give it just a moment to run. We can see it has just started back up. I'll be back when it's done. Okay, the Ansible playbook is done. We can see that recap one more time, and of course the most important bit, failed equals 0. So I'll Control-C out of that service and exit. That is about it. We have successfully deployed our service. I've shown how to maintain the Docker containers. Those will need updates occasionally. I would suggest maybe do it monthly or bi-monthly, something like that. Or if there's ever, say, a security vulnerability that needs to be patched, something along those lines. Kind of keep yourself apprised of the situation, keep up to date on Nextcloud and the other services, and maybe at a minimum, give yourself some guidance where you do it, monthly or bi-monthly. The last little bit that I will show is Terraform Destroy. If you're done with the project, you don't need Nextcloud anymore, you don't need the files that are stored in it anymore, maybe you've copied them off-site, or you simply don't need this project. There are instructions in the output. So destroying. Before destroying the service, you need to delete all the objects that are in the S3 buckets, or the DigitalOcean buckets. And you can do that via the AWS CLI. DigitalOcean uses AWS's S3 API, so we can use Amazon's tools to interact with DigitalOcean storage. Keep that in mind. There are instructions here. I've already got the AWS CLI installed, but if you did not, you would run these commands to install it. And you can see here there are credentials. These are your storage credentials that you created in one of the previous steps. You need to run these. I'll run these. There's 1 and 2. And then remove the objects. So I'll actually copy both of these and run them both. There we go. Okay, that's all done, and then I can run Terraform Destroy, just like we ran Terraform Apply, and we need to reference our var file, pfvars. It's going to ask us if we want to destroy all the resources. I will say yes, and that about wraps it up, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any concerns, if you have ideas on how to make the project better, if you need some assistance and you would like me to help you, I can certainly do that. Follow along with the Discord link that's in the description of this video. And then there's also a link on the GitHub page if you need it there too. You can certainly open a GitHub issue, that's fine as well, or you can leave a YouTube comment. That's great. Discord is the best place to reach me. Thank you everyone, have a great day, take care.